So I'd like to recall this select board meeting to order. We move to suspend the business part of our meeting, but I would still like to start this with the Pledge of Allegiance, just to honor the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. So looking at our agenda, we skipped, not really, but we skipped our usual public comment on non-agenda items. So this is an opportunity for any resident from the town of Pownell to step forward and be heard by the board. Is there anybody here that would like to take that opportunity? Seeing none, I'll move down to new business, if that's the correct place, and I will start by reading the town meeting draft warrant. And Becky Taylor Chase is going to insert, when applicable, some budget recommendations that were made during the budget committee meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Off we go. To Kathleen Hogue, a resident of the town of Pownell, Cumberland County, state of Maine, greetings. In the name of the state of Maine, you are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Pownell in said county and state qualified by law to vote in town affairs to assemble at Mallet Hall, 429 Hallowell Road, Pownell, Maine, on Tuesday, June 9th, 2026 at 7:45 a.m. Then and there to act upon Article 1 and by secret ballot on Article 2 set forth below. The polls will be open between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. and to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Pownell qualified by law to vote in town affairs to assemble at Pownell Elementary School, 587 Elmwood Road, Pownell, Maine, 04069, alternate location Mallet Hall, 429 Hallowell Road, Pownell, Maine, on Monday, June 22nd, 2026 at 7 p.m. To act upon the remaining articles 3 through 20 as set forth in this warrant. Article 1, choose a moderator to preside at said meeting. Do we have Mr. Nichols?
Jesse? Mr. Jesse, yep.
Article 2, to elect by secret ballot the following officers: 1 select board assessor for a 3-year term, 1 sanitary commissioner for a 3-year term, 1 RSU 5 board of directors for a 3-year term. Do we have candidates for all those?
We have nomination papers out for all 3. We have received 1 paperback for the RSU. There's a second paper out for that one. We've received the 1 paper out for select board, and we're waiting on the 1 paper for the cemetery commission.
Great. That's great. All right. Next item is ordinances. Do we want to do those before we do budget?
However you want to go through it. Yep.
Let's try to spring Tim and Isabella. So Article 3, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 301 General Provisions be enacted. The proposed ordinance is available for review and inspection at the town clerk's office and will be available at the town meeting, and that is Exhibit A. Tim, can you sit at the table and just be our interpreter? And Isabella, probably you could sit next to Kathy, Becky.
Right here. Before we start, Tim, I've just noticed that you have a section 100 in your exhibit, and I don't have that on my warrant article. So do we need to add that one in? Okay, let me make a note.
Okay, so where will we start, Tim? Why don't you guide the board through? Well, guide the board through Section 100 General. Rules of construction. 1, G, addition for housekeeping. G states. I'm not sure I'm with this. So what is the addition for housekeeping? What are we adding here?
So if this was Isabel's ad, so Yes, so I'm Isabel Lee. I'm the consultant assisting with land use ordinance amendments. So this is a clarification that it should be fairly standard in ordinances, but wasn't included in Pownell's. Just clarifying that when there is a case of a conflict, which all regularly occurs, the more restrictive provision would apply. And that's all this is getting at. So clarifying something that probably should have been included in the past.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I have a last night in my brain. I see that it's here. Good, okay, so is that all of Article 3, or do we keep going?
So that would be the first, the first article.
Okay, Article 4. Shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 304, non-conforming lots of record be enacted? Okay, so 304.
One.
I have.
So what happened is we started our wells. That's not on,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so that there's.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I'm good. Okay, so I'll read it. General provisions, 301. No building or structure shall be erected, altered, enlarged, rebuilt, moved, or used, and no premises shall be used unless in conformity with the provisions of this ordinance, except those existing which by the provisions of this ordinance become legally non-conforming upon its adoption. B, any unlawful use of buildings, structures, premises, land, or parts thereof existing at the effective date of this ordinance and made non-conforming by the provisions of this ordinance or any amendments thereto may be continued subject to the provisions of this section. C, in red, no lot shall be created or its bounds otherwise amended or changed if such action result in the creation of a lot that does not comply with the dimensional requirements of the zoning district in which the lot is located. For purpose of this section, dimensional requirements include, but are not limited to minimum lot area, minimum road frontage, minimum lot width, and any other dimensional standard established by this ordinance. Any plan or instrument that would result in the creation of a non-conforming lot shall not be approved or recorded unless a variance or other applicable relief has been granted by the appropriate municipal reviewing authority in accordance with this ordinance.
So this is a lot of words just to say that you can't create a nonconformity. And for those of you who aren't as well versed in land use ordinances, a nonconformity is basically any new lot or new building that doesn't comply with the ordinance. This is to respond to comments raised by planning board members as we are workshopping this. I understand that it has been an issue in Pownell in the past where people were coming to the town to create a lot that didn't have, for example, appropriate frontage, which is not something that should be allowable.
Thank you. Board, any questions about that particular section? Okay, thank you, Isabel. Well said. Article 4, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 304, is that what I just did? No. 304, non-conforming lots of record be enacted. The proposed order, okay. So here it goes, in red. A, general, a lot of record which is non-conforming as to the minimum lot area, minimum street frontage, and minimum lot width requirements of this ordinance on its effective date, or which is made non-conforming through an amendment thereto, may be built upon without the need for a variance, provided that such a lot is in a separate ownership and not contiguous with any other lot in the same ownership, and that all provisions of this ordinance except lot area, street frontage, and lot width can be met. Variances related to setback and other requirements not involving lot area, street frontage, and lot width shall be obtained by action of the Board of Appeals. Notwithstanding anything in this section, to the contrary, any lot without public sewer and/or public water shall have a minimum area 20,000 square feet, consistent with the Maine Department of Health and Human Services 10-144 CMR, Chapter 243, as may be amended, or else must receive a variance for this standard from the Maine Department of Health and Human Services pursuant to 10-144 CMR, Chapter 241, funny figure 14, as may be amended. B, contiguous lots. If two or more contiguous lots or parcels are in the same single or joint ownership of record at the time of or since adoption of amendments of this ordinance, and if any of these lots do not individually meet the dimensional requirements of this ordinance or subsequent amendments, and if one or more of the lots are vacant, the lot shall be combined to the extent necessary to meet the dimensional requirements. Lots will be combined at such time as application for the development comes before a municipal reviewing authority. C, in the case of eminent domain, in any district, a single developed lot may be allowed to be considered conforming and may be further built upon if the lot fails to meet the requirements for lot area, street frontage, and/or lot width that are generally applicable in the district due to the fact that a portion of the lot was acquired by the exercise of eminent domain authority by a government entity or public utility, or is acquired by a government entity or public utility by an instrument in lieu of the exercise of its eminent domain authority. Such a lot must be in separate ownership and not of continuous frontage with nor contiguous to other lots in the same record ownership, provided, however, that the other requirements not involving area or width of the lot shall conform to the regulations of the district in which the lot is located. Notwithstanding anything in this section to the contrary, any lot without public sewer and/or public water shall have a minimum area of 20,000 square feet consistent with the Maine Department of Health and Human Services 10-144 CMR, Chapter 243, as may be amended, or else must receive a variance for the standard from the Maine Department of Health and Human Services pursuant to 10-144 CMR, Chapter 241, funny figure 14, as may be amended. D, other standards. Nothing in this section shall abrogate any other provisions of this or any other local ordinance. In cases of conflict between this section and any other ordinance provision, including but not limited to provisions of the shoreland zoning ordinance, the stricter requirement shall apply.
Okay, so we had just talked about how you shouldn't be allowed to create a new nonconformity, but as amendments to the ordinance are adopted or when the first zoning or land use ordinance was initially adopted, there were likely, well, we know that there were many nonconformities that already exist. So I added these sections related to nonconforming lots of record, which would be what those properties that already exist are. Trying to keep the same policy intent as elsewhere in the ordinance, but explicitly outlining what would happen in 3 fairly common scenarios. So a typical lot that's not contiguous with any other lot that's in the same ownership. This would be allowed to be built upon without a variance, but would need to follow specific procedures outlined in the ordinance related to use and would still need to meet all setback requirements, but could still be built upon. If there are 2 non-conforming lots under the same ownership, these become combined at such time as an application for development is submitted to the town. So either the planning board or the code officer. And then the last one is frankly less common than those other 2, but still sometimes happens in the case of eminent domain. So in the case of taking of a portion of the property by eminent domain or another legal procedure, the portion of the property that's left over would still be allowed to be built upon without a variance, but would need to follow some specific procedures outlined in the ordinance, again, related to use, and would still need to meet all applicable setback requirements. So this is codifying in local ordinance something that is a general expectation of folks who may have owned land in town for many, many, many years. And as ordinance amendments occur, occasionally nonconformities happen. And so we need to still protect their legal right to their property.
Any questions from the board? That was a great explanation. All right, Article 5. Shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 400 definitions be enacted? Once again, the proposal will be available for review. Section 400 definitions. First, commercial farm building. A building or structure that is greater than 10,000 square feet in gross floor area, which is located on a farm and used solely in connection with the agriculture or forestry use of the land, including but not limited to the shelter or housing of livestock, poultry, or bees, the storage of hay, grain, seed, sod, or forage crops, storage of maintenance or agriculture or forestry implements and equipment, the production, storage, or processing of dairy products, poultry products, fruits, vegetables, or other plant and animal products raised or kept on the farm, the housing or cultivation of a nursery, ornamental, or greenhouse products grown on the farm, or the support of soil conservation or forestry management programs on the farm. It should not serve as a place of human habitation.
If I could interrupt for just a second, and I apologize, it may be helpful for us on this one to take it like definition by definition.
Yeah.
Okay. So with commercial farm building, you should be aware that currently in the existing ordinance, without any amendments, Pownell's site plan review procedures provides an exemption for the construction of, and I'm quoting, normal agriculture and forestry uses from planning board review. The problem is that this is a fairly broad exemption coupled with no standing definition of a commercial farm building, so something that would require planning board review, and that's why we've added that there. And I should have noted up top that this has all been workshopped by the planning board as well with a positive recommendation to move forward.
Any questions about commercial farm building? Next definition, frontage. The continuous horizontal distance along the portion of the lot's boundaries which abuts a road, public or private, and has a minimum depth of 40 feet. Grandfather clause removed by town meeting 6/19/17.
So on this one, we are just clarifying the definition of frontage to make it a little bit more obvious for anyone reading the ordinance, that that's what frontage means. And then grandfather clause, this is actually still in the ordinance, although it was voted to be removed by the town meeting in June of 2017. And it was the advice of the attorney that we just strike that clause entirely. And there's no reason to keep it in the ordinance if it was removed.
Questions? Lot of record, a lot that is described in a deed or shown on a plan recorded in the Cumberland County Registry of Deeds. So it has been struck, has been registered in the Cumberland County Registry of Deeds and been restated, is described in a deed.
So this one was a suggestion of the town's attorney that also reviewed the land use ordinance changes. And I think is just a clarification that it is either, a lot of record would be either something described on a deed or shown on a plan, such as an approved subdivision plan that hasn't necessarily been deeded over to the new buyer yet.
Net developable area, the gross available acreage less the areas of portions of the site which are unsuitable for development, such as, but not limited to, 1, area required for streets, public or private, 2, limiting topographical drainage or subsoil features. Examples, bedrock within 6 inches of surface, slopes in excess of 20%, water at surface for all or part of the year, unstable soils, right-of-way or easements, resource protection districts, not any associated 250-foot setback area, land which is cut off from the main parcel by road or waterway, which acts as a major barrier to common use, amended 6/18/18. The codes enforcement officer shall make the final interpretation and the determination of net developable acreage for a single lot and may seek the review and advice of the planning board in doing so. And in red, width of 50 feet or less between the property boundaries.
So in the ordinance currently in section 504, which I believe is related to the dimensional standards required in each zoning district, there is a provision there that the width of 50 feet or less between property boundaries what we sometimes call a spaghetti lot, or just like a very odd lot configuration, is not considered net developable area. And so we also cross-reference that to the definition just for ease of use.
Okay, any questions? Okay, next definition, net residential acreage, the gross available acreage less the area required for streets.
It's the same. Can save you a little bit of reading.
Okay, okay. And it being the same,
Right, same thing here. We wanted to clarify that what is unsuitable for development also includes that with the 50 feet or less, a very odd lot configuration.
any questions at all? Okay, we have one more definition. Last definition, normal agriculture and forestry building. A building or structure located on a farm used solely in connection with the is this the same as?
Yeah, so we had, to go back to the initial conversation about commercial farm building, this is the definition for a normal agriculture and forestry building, which within all of those words is the same definition of commercial, except that this is a building that is smaller than 10,000 square feet in gross floor area. Because anything greater than 10,000 square feet would be considered a commercial farm building. So this would be the one that is able to be exempt from planning board review.
Does anyone want me to read that definition or are we okay? Okay. Article, on my paper 6, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 501, establishment of zoning districts, and Section 504D, standards being enacted. Once again, the proposed ordinance is available for review and inspection at the office and will be available at town meeting. So Section 501, establishment of zoning districts. To implement the provisions of this ordinance, the town is hereby divided into the following classes of districts. 1, village district, V. 2, rural district, RA. 3, rural district, RB. And in red, 4, mobile home park overlay district, MHPO. And do I do 504 too?
It might be helpful again for us to sort of separate this one out. So just to clarify, the red is the new zoning district that has been established. Currently, how this ends up operating functionally is that anywhere in the current RB rural district, a mobile home park is allowable. We have removed that provision, which you'll get to further down, and added in a mobile home park overlay district. There's a map supplement to the packet, which shows where that overlay district is. It's limited to, I think, only two properties now, rather than the entirety of the RB district. And it functionally operates as an overlay of the RB district, which means any use within the RB is allowable. And in addition to that, you could create a mobile home park only on those two properties now, not the entirety of the RB district.
So with this addition, are we in compliance with state law?
Right. So all municipalities need to have one area in the community, at least one area where mobile home parks are allowed, and this would be our one area.
Still have 2.
Well, 2 properties, yeah.
Description in statute is kind of plural.
Mhm.
So safer to have 2.
Okay. Great. Any questions about 501? Becky?
I just have a quick comment on Article 6. I need to strike and Section 504D because 504 is in the next article. So in the article itself, I just will edit that language. It says 501 establishing of zoning district and Section 504D. 504 is actually the next article. So it's just a correction on the warrant article.
Okay. Everybody understand? All right, 504 is oh, that's the next article. Okay, Article 7. I understand now, Becky. Thank you. Shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 504 zoning districts be enacted? Once again, the proposed ordinance is available for review, inspection of the town clerk's office, and will be available at town meeting. 504 zoning districts. A, village district, which is V, has a symbol V. 3, special exceptions. A, cemeteries. B, industry and manufacturing activities. C, used car sales. D, public utility installations. E, construction in a floodplain as defined under section 13A of the ordinance, and F, in red, any structures that are over 45 feet in height, regardless of use. For dimensional standards, the performance standards contained in this section shall apply to all districts, uses, and activities unless otherwise specified. Whether or not specified, specific approval or permit is required. And D, yard requirements.
Goes on to the next. DIIA.
Okay. III, street frontage requirement. A, single two-family dwellings and accessory dwelling units, 300 in red continuous feet, amended 624, and B, non-residential uses exclusive of manufacturing, 300 continuous feet. E, height restrictions, and I'm going to read what's been deleted. No building shall exceed 2.5 stories or 35 feet in height, whichever is lower, except that these height requirements shall not apply to farm buildings not used for human habitation, windmills, flagpoles, wind power generators, or communication towers. That has been lined out. And what has been written is no structure shall exceed 45 feet in height except as provided in this section. The foregoing height limitation shall not apply to buildings used for normal agriculture and forestry uses and not used for human habitation, nor shall they apply to telecommunication towers, subject to any other applicable provisions in this ordinance. Any structure exceeding 45 feet in height shall be considered a special exception and require approval by the planning board. In reviewing an application for a special exception pursuant to this section, the planning board shall apply the applicable standards outlined in section 500 zoning districts, section 800 site plan review, and section 602 wireless telecommunication facilities as applicable to the type and use of structure. No structure approved pursuant to this subsection shall exceed 100 feet in height except for co-located user telecommunication towers and otherwise permitted by this ordinance. B, should I stop there and?
Let's stop there and take that one as it reads. So what we've added here is essentially created that any structure that's over 45 feet in height, regardless of its use, is a special exception, which requires review by the planning board. We have also outlined that no structure at all so you could theoretically have a structure that's larger in height than 45 feet, but it would need to go through planning board review. And then we've also outlined that no structure, period, could be bigger than 100 feet in height, except for co-located telecommunication towers. That's all that's getting at.
Questions from the board? Okay. So under B, Rural District RA, 3, special exceptions. Business and professional uses provided that they meet the following standards. I, each use shall not cover more than 5,000 square feet of floor space, except that commercial farm buildings may exceed this number.
Do you want to stop there?
Yeah, so this is sort of getting at the conversation that we had previously. We have tried to draw a discrepancy between normal agriculture and forestry buildings and then commercial farm buildings. And you'll note that typically if you have a business or professional use that is, it can't cover more than 5,000 square feet of floor space, period. However, commercial farm buildings by definition, are over 10,000 square feet of gross floor area, so they are allowed to cover more than 5,000 square feet of floor space. And, oh, and again, any structure that's over 45 feet in height, regardless of use, requires planning board review in the RA district as well.
So going forward with B, this just copies what was in the village district as far as height restriction.
Yep.
And also, it talks about continuous, 300 feet continuous in these sections, continuous frontage. And then there is a change in RB down to C. That's different than what was before.
So we're going to go to the next page. In CRB, under permitted uses. All right, ready with me? These are the same as rural district RA. What's been struck is mobile home park on the parcel identified as lot number 30 on the town tax map, number 2, amended 625. Special exceptions amended 625. H, business and professional uses provided that they meet the following standards. I, each use shall not cover more than 5,000 square feet of floor space. And in red, except the commercial farm buildings may exceed this number.
Can I stop you again?
Yeah.
This is repeating, for every district is repeating these changes within the district.
Okay. So, you suggest, so I just want to go to J or L here. Mobile home parks in the Pownell Mobile Home Park Overlay District as shown on the town of Pownell zoning map 30A MRSA. Okay, so that's different.
Yeah, so the biggest change in the RB district is what we had talked about previously. We have removed that section, only allowing a mobile home park on one in particular property, and we have allowed it on 2 properties still within the RB district and did that as an overlay instead. So it's also a zoning map amendment that was included in your packet.
That explains it.
I have a question.
Mhm.
It says amended 625. Is that June of 2025?
I believe so, yep.
That's correct.
All right, and so on 4, is there anything new there, Tim?
No, this was clarifying, again, frontage is continuous feet.
Next, significant changes on the next page, 5, district standards.
You all there? Okay. 5, district standards. A, bed and breakfast. I, a bed and breakfast should not exceed 6 sleeping rooms. 2, some sitting and dining rooms may be used or intended for use in common by such guests. 3 I's. There shall be no kitchen facilities in the rented units or rooms themselves. IV, there should be no separate ownership of individual rooms or units. B, in, let's just do bed and breakfast. Any questions?
So just to clarify, both 5A and 5B, what we realized as we were going through the ordinance, we were sort of going through it with a fine tooth comb, and we realized that when you got down to the RB district standards, it just ended. There was nothing else. And so these are the same standards as in all of the other zoning districts related to those uses. It seems like it was just an omission in the past.
So these are just, I'm just going to read it anyway because it's in red.
Perfect.
So B, inns. An inn shall contain fewer than 15 sleeping rooms. 2, an inn shall include 1 restaurant that is open to the public as well as meeting common room. 3, an inn will be confined to the Pownell Village District only and by special exemption in rural district RA and RB. 4, there should be no kitchen facilities and rented units or rooms. 5, inns may have recreational facilities such as pool, yard, or fitness room. However, such facilities shall only be available for use by guests and not be open to the public. 6, the design of the structure shall reflect and complement the rural character of the town as reflected in the comprehensive plan. Pretty self-explanatory. Questions from the board? Mobile Home Park Overlay District, MHPO. Purpose, the Mobile Home Park Overlay District is established to provide opportunities for the development, manufactured housing parks in appropriate locations served by adequate infrastructure in a manner that protects public health, safety, and welfare and promotes affordable housing opportunities. 2, location, the Mobile Home Park Overlay shall be the portions of the rural zoning district as shown on the official zoning map of the town of Pownell. 3, permitted uses. those permitted in the underlying zoning district as outlined by section 504C. 4, special exceptions in addition to those uses allowed as special exceptions in the underlying zoning districts as outlined in section 504C. Mobile home parks are allowable in this district as a special exception. 5, dimensional standards. Those dimensional standards applicable in the underlying zoning district except that dimensional standards for mobile home parks are set forth in section 604 of this ordinance. 6, district standards. The district standards applicable in this underlying zoning district except that the performance standards applicable to mobile home parks are set forth in section 604 of this ordinance.
So on this one, again, just to clarify, we didn't necessarily change anything major about the mobile home park ordinance. What we have done here is sort of a best practice amendment related to how things are noted in the ordinance and on the map, just for clarification into the future.
Thank you. Questions at all? Space and dimensional standards, asterisk, 4, minimum 300 feet of lot line most parallel to the road fronting the lot. A corner lot must have at least 300 continuous feet, continuous added, of frontage on a single road.
This is again getting at, as I understand it, problems that the town has had in the past around how to calculate frontage. So this is clarifying that in the way that the planning board would like to
Great.
to do
Questions
so.
from the board? That's great. I think we've buttoned up the continuous part. All right.
In the next section. I have to do it. Go ahead.
Shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to Town of Pownell, Maine regarding section 601, driveway and driveway entrance be enacted?
So the change here, so they don't make you read the whole thing because that hasn't changed, is the chart. And the chart reflects the DOT standards, which are currently in effect.
Okay, so the chart, can everyone find the chart on page 14? It just goes, and I have to read it. It goes allowable speed 25, required site distance 200. Allowable speed, and this is miles per hour, 30. Required site distance in feet is 250. 35 miles per hour, 305 feet. 40 miles per hour, 360 feet. 45 miles per hour, 425 feet. 50 miles per hour, 495 feet. And 55 miles per hour is eliminated, and 425, assuming we don't have any 55-mile-an-hour roads.
I can't think of any.
Okay, everybody understand that? Any questions for Isabella or Tim? Thank you for doing that. That puts us in compliance with DOT. Number 9, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to Zoning Ordinance for the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding section 605, single lot ordinance be enacted? All right. 60,
Sorry, I'll fix that. Yeah, we go back to it. Sorry, I got it out of sequence. I fixed it in my computer. It's just not fixed.
I don't have 604 for a warrant article, so I'll need to add that in.
yeah, it's easy to put in. Yeah, that's why we do this. 605, single lot ordinance. F, private roads. The construction of a private road shall be pursuant to the requirements of section 610, private and private road ordinances. What's been deleted is Article 8.
Just a transposition, I think the numbering of the ordinance was changed, but there's no substantive policy change.
Any questions, Isabel or Tim? All right, let's go back to, we will have another article, and it's for 604. And 604 is mobile home parks. D, approval standard. 1, approval criteria prior to that. Prior to approving a mobile home park, the planning board shall find that A, the plan complies with this applicable provisions of the subdivision Isabel, what is that figure?
That's a section figure. It's what that's trying to say, section 900.
Section 900 and site plan review, section 800, and is in accordance with the state subdivision review law. Home park law as modified by the dimensional requirements set forth in 30/AMRS, section 53583 as may be amended.
So just to clarify, home park law should also be struck. That was part of the part that was struck. And then this is just to clarify that it needs to be in accordance with state law, which recently changed some of the dimensional requirements that you can have in mobile home parks.
Great, thank you. All right, Article 10, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 609 manufactured housing being enacted. Once again, the proposed ordinance is available at Town Hall and will be available at the meeting. 609 manufactured housing. K, design standards. All manufactured housing located in the Town of Pownell shall, 1, be at least 14 feet in width and contain at least 750 square feet of living space. 2, have a pitched roof and siding that is residential in appearance. 3, have skirting that is made from rot-resistant materials. And 4, have a permanent foundation or engineered reinforced concrete slab.
So this one requires some context. So you may be aware that within the past 3 years, the state has changed its manufactured housing, which is mobile home requirements, requiring that municipalities allow the placement of manufactured housing, including mobile homes, anywhere that a single-family home is allowed. That being said, you can adopt design standards related to the mobile homes to try to, make them fit with existing neighborhoods and all of those kind of benefits. So we workshopped with the planning board the set of design standards. These have changed a number of times. This is where the planning board netted out that they were most comfortable. So trying to sort of thread a needle between not being overly restrictive, but again, fitting in with established neighborhoods.
Make a comment.
Please.
So it was pointed out to me earlier by Shane that most mobile homes measure like 13'4" or 13'8". So if you say 14 foot, you're excluding a lot of mobile homes. So my inclination is to change that to 13 instead of 14.
Any comment about that?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shane.
Okay. All right, Article 11. Shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 610, public and private roads be enacted. 610, public and private roads. Applications. Submission. An applicant shall submit an application to the planning board for review of a proposed new public or private road in the form of a surveyed preliminary single lot division plan, a site plan, or a preliminary minor or conservation subdivision plan. So major has been struck. The proposal new road shall be shown by meets and bounds. The applicant may have his or her agent submit the survey plan provided by an authorized agent is designated by the owner of the application form. The applicant shall submit a list of all abutters within 500 feet of the proposed road right-of-way. Struck as yes, no. And standards, the frontage along a road or public or private shall have a minimum depth of 40 feet. Road frontage shall not be measured off. Struck hammerhead and added turnaround. Isabel.
So with those application requirements, the first one where we struck major and added conservation, I was at the town meeting a few years ago when the town adopted the changes that that all major subdivisions are now conservation subdivisions. So just a verbiage change. This yes, no that has been struck, you may be aware that anything in the ordinance, land use, has to go through town meeting, even if it appears to be a typo. This appears to be a transposition issue from the past. I don't know how long that's been there, but we're just going to get rid of it. And then as I understand it, and I might have to tap Tim for this one, we don't allow hammerheads in our ordinance, so we use the word turnaround instead.
The appendices that we use for road standards does not have hammerhead, it has turnaround.
Questions from the board? Great. All right, Article 12, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 613 floodplain management be enacted? Under 613 floodplain management, permit required. 1, pursuant to the requirements of the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, administered by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and in accordance with 30-AMRS Section 3001 and 38 MRS Section 435 et sequitur, the town of Pownell thereby adopts the most recent floodplain insurance study, FIS, and flood insurance rate maps, FIRMS, issued by FEMA for Cumberland County, Maine, including all revisions thereto, to protect natural floodplain, prevent pollution, and conserve natural resources. No construction or any other development shall be performed in floodplain areas without a written approval obtained from the code enforcement officer or in accordance with Section 613. And struck is defined in Pownell by the FEMA in a report entitled Flood Insurance. Okay, we've struck that. Number 2, areas of special flood hazard. Areas of special flood hazard are identified by the Federal Emergency Management Agency in a map entitled Flood Insurance Rate Map, Town of Pownell, Maine, Cumberland County. And we struck dated December 2nd, 1980, June 20th, 2024, and added, or as most recently adopted by FEMA, which is hereby adopted by reference and declared to be part of the ordinance. Change each reference in the section to or as most recent, okay.
That's not part of the ordinance, sorry.
5, notify adjacent municipalities, the Department of Environmental Protection Agency, and the Maine Floodplain Management Program in the Maine Office of Community Affairs prior to any alteration or relocation of a water course and submit copies of such notifications to the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
So the changes here are all about adopting the most recent flood insurance rate maps, which have been updated as of 2024, and then cleaning up that in the future, rather than changing the ordinance every time, we should just say, or as most recently adopted by FEMA. And then the other change here is that the State Planning Office no longer exists. It hasn't existed in a while, but we have now created the Maine Office of Community Affairs, which would house the floodplain management program.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Great. Article 13, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Maine regarding Section 615 accessory dwelling units be enacted? Accessory dwelling units, what has been stricken is A, the accessory dwelling unit and or principal dwelling may be rented. Either the principal single-family dwelling or the accessory dwelling unit must be owner-occupied. And what has replaced it as A, the creation, conversion to, or construction of a new accessory dwelling unit shall require necessary permits to be issued by the code enforcement officer. An accessory dwelling unit may be constructed only, I, within an existing dwelling unit on the lot, to attach to or sharing a wall with a single-family dwelling unit or multi-unit structure, or 3, as a new structure on the plot that already has a primary dwelling for the primary purpose of creating an accessory dwelling unit. B, no more than one accessory dwelling unit shall be permitted per lot. C, the accessory dwelling unit shall have living, sleeping, and sanitary kitchen facilities for the exclusive use of the unit occupants. What's been struck is the accessory dwelling unit cannot exceed 750 square feet. What's been added is D, accessory dwelling units shall contain a minimum of 190 square feet of gross floor area and shall not exceed 850 square feet of gross floor area or 50% of the habitable square footage space of the principal dwelling unit, whichever is smaller. What's been struck is the number of accessory dwelling units allowed on a lot will be as permitted by state statute, amended 625. What's been struck is all current codes must be met and occupancy permit must be obtained. What's been replaced is accessory dwelling units served by private wastewater disposal shall be permitted only where evidence is provided of the wastewater disposal system's capacity to handle any increased wastewater. What's been struck is accessory dwelling unit must have adequate sewage disposal for subsurface wastewater. What's been added is accessory dwelling unit shall have sufficient access to public or private potable water. Under G, accessory dwelling units may not be rented for periods of less than 6 months without registering with the code enforcement officer as a short-term rental. Section H, accessory dwelling units shall be in conformity with all applicable federal, state, and local laws, ordinance, and regulations. That was amended 624. And under I, all dwelling units and accessory structures permitted on a single lot shall remain under single ownership unless and until the lot is lawfully divided in accordance with applicable statute. Whew.
So this was really to start to respond to state law changes that allow accessory dwelling units on any lot where residential uses are allowed. What we tried to do here is make some specific policy changes that we could within the confines of state law. So the language in A that an accessory dwelling unit may be constructed either within, attached to, or as a new structure is straight from state law, but it is a policy decision for the town to make that there can be no more than one accessory dwelling unit permitted per lot. So we have outlined that there. It is a policy decision for the town to make around the minimum and maximum of an accessory dwelling unit. So D, minimum of 190 square feet, and then a maximum of either 850 square feet or 50% of the habitable square footage space of the principal dwelling unit, whichever is smaller. This is really to get at, these are meant to be accessory and subordinate to any principal dwelling units on the lot. So trying to set a maximum, so as really not to change overall character of how things look from the street. Some general changes around access to water and wastewater. We added accessory dwelling units may not be rented for periods of less than 6 months without registering as a short-term rental. I think that makes sense. It doesn't say that they're not allowed to be rented, period. They just have to register. Of course, they should still be in conformity with all applicable laws, ordinances, and regulations. And then the state does not allow you to require that either the single family or the ADU is owner occupied, but it does allow municipalities to require that both units remain under single ownership. So for example, I couldn't build an ADU on my property and then like condoize my property such that I could sell off the ADU as sort of another dwelling. They need to remain under the same ownership.
Feels good. Any questions for the board? Thank you. That feels really.
Under A, do you mean to call it a plot instead of a lot?
If I called it a plot, I didn't.
No.
It says, do you feel that there's a functional difference?
No, but everywhere else is referenced as a lot.
Okay, I think it makes sense to change that to just lot then. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You are paying attention. All right. Article 14, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 801 applicability be enacted. All right, applicability. This is to the site plan review. B, exempted from this ordinance are the construction on one lot of one single or one two-family residential structure and accessory structures and uses as permitted by applicable zoning regulations, normal agriculture and forestry uses as defined in section 400. What's been struck is sand and gravel pits, the construction of parking area for less than 3 vehicles, interior improvements which meet code requirements and home occupations.
So the planning board opted to make sand and gravel pits no longer exempt from site plan review. I think we can all generally agree that they probably have some level of impact, which would require planning board review. And then accessory structures, you can't, the state law changes don't allow you to make even accessory dwelling units require planning board review. And so we just clarified that even accessory structure, any accessory structure is exempt from planning board review.
Questions from the board?
So that's to differentiate it from an accessory dwelling. It's not habitable.
So we already allow that, like an accessory structure such as a shed or a garage is exempt, and ADUs would be included in that. And so I think we were just underscoring that there's no need for the planning board to review any accessory structure.
Okay. Article 15, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 807 criteria and standards being enacted. Under criteria and standards, F, vehicular access. Tim, same thing? Yep.
It's the same as what was in the private road ordinance. It is, the chart is made to comply with DOT standards.
Thank you. Any questions? The same as,
So for 25 miles per hour, it should be 200 feet.
That's correct. I was just noticing that as well. 160 should have been struck.
Article 16, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 901, purpose and review criteria be enacted. So that is under Section 900 subdivision, 901, purpose and review criteria. A, the purpose of these standards shall be to encourage development that preserves Pownell's rural character and protects natural and culturally important resources, is consistent with the 2020 comprehensive plan. Furthermore, the purpose of these standards shall be to assure the comfort, convenience, safety, health, and welfare of people, to protect the environment, to promote the development of the economically sound, stable community. To this end, in approving subdivisions within the town of Pownell, Maine, the board shall consider the following criteria, and before granting approval, shall determine the proposed subdivision. And then it stops there. 13, based on the Federal Emergency Management Agent flood boundary and floodway maps and flood insurance rate maps, and information presented by the applicant whether the subdivision is in a flood-prone area. If the subdivision or any part of it is in such an area, the subdivider shall determine the 100-year flood elevation and flood hazard boundaries within the subdivision. The proposed subdivision plan must include a condition of a plan approval requiring that principal structures in the subdivision will be constructed with their lowest floor, including the basement, at least 1 foot above the 100-year flood elevation. What's been struck is line 14, 100-year flood plan, flood elevation, flood hazard boundaries within the subdivision. The proposed subdivision plan must include a condition of a plan approval requiring principal structures in the subdivision will be constructed with their lowest floor, including the basement, at least 1 foot above the 100-year flood plan. And then 14, all freshwater wetlands within the proposed subdivision.
Can I stop you?
Yes, it's all.
So, going back up to the top, this, the purpose helps define the reason why, some of the things are in the ordinance.
Okay.
And going down, 13 and 14 were merged before without a number. So we separated out, and then going forward, it just changed the numbers on everything going forward in that section.
So any questions about, I guess, would be the opening paragraph? Yeah.
It is labeled 2021. It was adopted in 2022, but it does call itself 2021.
Thank you, Shane. All right, so we can skip all the enumeration edits. Go to Article 17. Shall an ordinance inquire entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 902 Authority and Administration be enacted? 902 Authority and Administration. A, authority. The new writing is the town regulates all subdivisions as defined in 30/AMRS Section 44014 as may be amended, notwithstanding the foregoing as authorized by the state of Maine through P and SL 205, Chapter 145. The town defined subdivision as a division of a tract of parcel of land into 2 or more lots within a 5-year period that begins on or after September 13th, 1971 until January 1st, 2008. The amendment to any subdivision created prior to January 1st, 2008 must be subject to review under Section 605 of this ordinance as applicable.
So this one also requires a little bit of background context. So the state regulates the definition of subdivisions. There have been a number of amendments over the years since 1971 when it was first adopted. At some point down the line, and I have never seen this before, Pownell somehow got an exemption from a definition of subdivision that rather than 3 or more lots, which is the current definition, ours was 2 or more lots, which functionally meant that any division of land had to be reviewed on some level. It is my understanding that this expired in 2008, but because we had all these years of reviewing subdivisions that way, and when you review a subdivision, it is required to be recorded on the Registry of Deeds, and people buy into a subdivision expecting certain rights conveyed through the review of a subdivision. Anything that was reviewed in that time period where we had an alternative definition still is considered a subdivision and still needs to be reviewed, including any lot line amendments, things like that. So this is sort of complicated, but our attorney drafted this one up for us to kind of clarify all of those moving parts. The thing to be aware of here is that the definition of subdivision has again changed. And so that statutory reference up at the top and the note as may be amended covers us in the case of future amendments.
Okay, so there's a historical precedent that existed over a period of time that the town must recognize and continue to recognize. But we're currently using the state definition of subdivision to all new subdivisions.
Correct. The single lot ordinance is just that, a single lot ordinance, not a single lot subdivision.
Great. Any questions from the board? That's going to be a big help. All right. Article 18, shall ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Maine, Section 904, Review and Procedure and Submission for minor subdivision be enacted. 904, Review and Procedure and Submissions for minor subdivision. Submission A-H, if a private road that is a minor dead-end street or road 600 feet or less is part of a proposed minor subdivision, the subdivider shall obtain as a condition of approval by the planning board a permit for the private road from the codes enforcement officer. The permit, as it may be amended from time to time by the planning board, is herein adopted by reference by this article, amended 6/17/19. The addition is the horizontal distance when measured along the roadway frontage between the proposed new private road and any other proposed or established road shall be 750 feet. And double I, the planning board, and then it's just
Renumbering.
enumeration. Okay, so it's the horizontal distance.
I want to make sure that you guys understand how this one is going to operate in practice. So what this does is that if there is a existing established road, a new private road cannot receive a permit from the code enforcement officer if it is within 750 feet of an existing or proposed or already proposed private road. So this is kind of a big policy change, but the planning board felt that this was consistent with maintaining rural character as outlined in the comprehensive plan. And so that's why they opted to add this in there. But I just want to make sure that you understand how that operates functionally.
How was 750 feet as a number established?
It was pulled out of the conservation subdivision. That's what's in that subdivision law.
Questions? Kind of a big deal. Okay, good. Yeah. At a public hearing, you can. Okay, so just make sure you mark it down. Thank you. Article 19, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 amendments to zoning ordinance of the town of Pownell, Maine regarding section 908 performance standards conservation subdivision be enacted. 908 performance standards conservation subdivision 7 private roads. E, in order to support rural character specified in the goals and strategies of the 2021 comprehensive plan, new private roads and any other proposed or established road shall be spaced at least 750 feet apart as measured from the center line of each roadway along the horizontal frontage of the intersecting roadway. New private roads in a conservation subdivision should comply with the standards of appendix in the ordinance.
So again, it was mentioned that new private roads need to be spaced at least 750 feet apart from existing or proposed roads. We re-clarified that here. I just want to state that I had some concerns around this policy change and really wanted to hammer home in the ordinance that this was supported by the comprehensive plan because, as you are likely aware, any changes to zoning or land use related ordinances need to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And so I felt that it provided the town some additional legal backing to specifically cite that this was outlined in the comp plan.
Okay, and the last one, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 amendments to zoning ordinance of the town of Pownell, Maine regarding section 909, variance and waivers be enacted. Under variance and waivers, it looks like under 2, special provisions of the Pownell zoning board ordinance 504 has been struck. 504 has not been struck. So in case of the performance standards, the planning board may modify provisions of the zoning ordinance relating to space and bulk as specified in section 504. Under 3, the planning board may waive the standards in section 610, public and private roads ordinance for minor dead-end streets, 600 feet or less, so long as the planning board determines that the public health, safety, and general welfare should be met by modified standards.
Renumbering.
Thank you. This is a lot of work. Boy, I think the town owes Tim and Isabella a huge thank you. Thank you for the incredibly clear clarifications. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's going to be so helpful moving forward. Any questions for Isabella before we let her find her way home?
I'm actually sticking around for another one, but I've
Okay.
searched my computer, so.
Thank you, Tim. That's a huge amount of work. All right. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $162,000 for the capital project fund. Select board recommends approval.
And that was their request this year.
But, all set? If I don't see your heads come up, I'm gonna just keep going, okay? And just stop me if you want. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate up to $276,500 from the capital project funds for the purchase of the following items to see what action the town will take. Public Works, a new excavator, $232,500, and a flail motor attachment for the excavator, $44,000. Select Board recommends approval. All right, budget articles. Article 23. To see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate $4,164 for the dedicated tax incremental financing, TIF, General Ledger Fund G/3/1530/00, and to raise and appropriate $0 for general government.
So this is where you'll insert your recommendation. So I'm gonna give a little context to this one. We typically don't fund our warrant articles, but because in our TIF application, originally for that area of town, we identified offsetting certain salaries with that money. And it was determined in our workshop that we wanted to use the 5% towards the town administrators. So, and to demonstrate that for clear transparency, should we ever need to go back, and have an audit for our TIF account, we show specifically here that 5% going towards the general government budget that is offsetting 5% of the town administrator's salary. The second piece is, since we met, there were a couple of changes to the general government budget presentation. I lowered the phone lines a little bit because we removed a line that's not being used. I increased the legal line. Initially was presented at 20,000. I increased to 30,000. And we included money for potential work on the comprehensive plan. That came to a new budget recommendation of 748,107, which is what the budget committee adopted as a recommendation. And that is listed below that article. So now it's to the board as far as what you want to recommend. Oh, the other piece is they also went with a 4% increase in the select board stipend. I had put a placeholder in initially at 3%.
So our job is to approve the new figure of $748,107. That'll need a motion. Can you see it?
I move that we approve the amount of $748,107.
Seconded. Seconded. And the recommended, the total expenditure, general government, $708 to $748,107. Any further discussion? Seeing none? So moved. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate.
So these will all be the same way.
And so the budget committee recommend, so it's, I gotta read this. $1,500 for compensation, $5,000 for general assistance, $4,500 for Freeport Community Service, and $1,000 for Through These Doors.
So that was last year's budget numbers. They're recommending 12,500 this year. Yep, that's okay. And the only change was Freeport Community Services increased their request by 500. I did research back today. That hadn't changed since 2010. And there was no change from initial presentation to this adoption.
Budget committee recommends $12,500. Pete?
That we approve $12,500 for human services.
Seconded.
Seconded. Discussion. All in favor. Article 25, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $43,520 for Mallet Hall.
No changes since initial presentation.
Move that we approve $43,520 for Mallet Hall.
Second it.
Seconded to approve 43,520 for Mallet Hall. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, so moved. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate uh, 2,000.
This one has the FEMA funding that we're required to do for the grant reporting.
See if the town will vote to to transfer and appropriate $2,679.26 from dedicated FEMA grant ledger fund 61420300 to raise and appropriate.
And the difference will be between the Budget Committee's recommendation of $261,097 for that piece. So the total amount is 261,097, and then we're funding it between taxation and the FEMA grant line.
Okay. Go ahead, Skip.
I move that we approve $261,097 for public safety.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve $261,097 from public safety. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor. Article 27, to see if the town will vote to raise and transfer and appropriate $41,228.70 from the dedicated FEMA grant General Ledger Fund G1420300 and raise and appropriate $917,353 for public works.
This budget had a change from initial presentation, actually had a reduction of almost 106,000. Upon discussions with the road commissioner and some workshopping, they have made a decision to hold on paving rehab this year, do some work on preparatory, box cutting, ditching, culvert work, tree work, and then resume the schedule. They plan on sort of doing that latter approach. So the next year they'll be prepping for the following year's rehab, paving rehab. So that resulted in about $106,000 reduction in the overall budget since initial presentation.
I move that we approve $917,353 for public works.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve $917,353 for public works. Any further discussion? Favor? On the warrant, Article 28, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $186,890 for solid waste.
No change since initial presentation.
Move that we approve $186,890 for solid waste.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve on the warrant, $186,890 for solid waste. Any further discussion? Seeing none in favor, it's on the warrant. Number 30, number 29, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,005 for the Pownell Center Water Association.
No change since initial presentation.
Move that we approve $6,005 for Pownell Center Water Association on the warrant.
Second it.
Seconded to approve $6,005 on for Pownell Center Water Association. Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's on the warrant. Number 30, Article 30, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $8,500 for cemeteries.
No change.
Move that we approve $8,500 for cemeteries.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve on the warrant, $8,500 for cemetery. Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's on the warrant. Number 31, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $356 for debt service and other obligations.
No change.
I move that we approve $257,356 for debt service and obligations.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve $257,356 for debt service and other obligations. On the warrant, any further discussions? Seeing none, all in favor? It's on the warrant. Number 32, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,000 for the Recreation Committee.
No change.
I move that we approve $1,000 for the Recreation Committee for the town room.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve $1,000 for the Recreation Committee to be put on the town warrant. Is there any further discussion?
Recreation Committee.
Seeing none, all in favor? 33, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,500 for the installation of PFAS filter systems and annual testing for two properties located near the former landfill.
So this includes money we already owe, and then testing that we'll have to do initially quarterly for the first year and then annually. I've been conversing with North Yarmouth Town Manager. She has supplied me with an itemized, very detailed spreadsheet showing the costs that they have already upfronted, the cost that the state has reimbursed. It's very detailed. And then they're going to continue to sort of spearhead it and just send us a bill for the reimbursement part. So for us, it's very simple. It's just a matter of approving the money each year for the cost of initial equipment and then the testing after.
I move that we approve $1,500 for the installation of PFAS filter systems and annual testing.
Second it.
Seconded to approve $1,500 for the installation of PFAS filters and the annual testing for two properties located near the former landfills. Any further discussion?
So is it anticipated that it will be a little less money in the future?
That's correct.
Warrant. 34, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate blah, 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 from unsigned fund balance for repairs to the sand and salt shed building. What's the-
So this is the unknown right now. We currently are having the assessment done. The site visit was last Thursday. Original timeline had a potential estimate of cost from this particular company at the end of March, but contract negotiations pushed it back. They're now hoping to have a figure before the second public hearing. So I'm not sure where that puts this. I won't have a figure for the first one, and I'm fingers crossed that we'll be able to have a number by the end.
So we have to include some mythical figure here. So up to $200,000.
And hopefully we'll have an adjustment.
Up to $200,000 from the unassigned fund balance for repairs to the salt and sand shed building.
Second it.
Seconded to approve up to $200,000 from unassigned fund balance for repairs to sand and salt shed building. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? On the warrant. Article 35, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $2,000 for the North Pownell Community Outreach.
You did motion this one last time.
Move that we approve $2,000 for North Pownell Community Outreach.
Second it.
Seconded, warrant, $1,000 for the North Pownell Community Outreach. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's on the warrant. 36, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $5,000 for the Economic Development Committee for the following purpose: outreach and engagement, information materials, communications, and small-scale events and workshops.
Move that we approve $5,000 for Economic Development Committee.
Second it.
Seconded to approve $5,000 for the Economic Development Committee for the following purpose: outreach and engagement, informational materials, communications, and small-scale events and workshops. Any further discussion? All in favor? On the warrant. Article 37, to see if the town of Pownell will vote to raise and appropriate $25,000 for legal fees specific to early childhood development process, potential reconfiguration of Powell Elementary School, possible separation from the regional school unit number 5.
So this one might need the lawyer to maybe wordsmith it better. I do want to mention, he called me today because the FOA request was sent from the RSU 5 that the select board approved last night. Drummond and Woodson represents the RSU 5 in our letter of engagement. They will automatically represent the school. So should we move further along in the process, if a citizen's petition comes back for withdrawal, we will need to get conflict counsel. And we don't know what that rate could be. It was recommended by one of the residents that spoke last night in looking at another town of using the figure of 50,000, but just wanted to throw those pieces of information out as you're looking at this article.
So in further review, I've seen that this figure is going to be low, so I'm going to move to amend this. If the town will vote to raise an appropriate $50,000 for legal fees specific to potential reconfiguration for Powell.
You want me to strike the early childhood development program? Okay.
Is there a second on that?
Second it.
Been moved and seconded to raise and appropriate $50,000 for legal fees specific to potential reconfiguration of Powell Elementary School. There's a possible separation for the regional school unit. The reason why I'm striking the other one is because there are other possible reasons why the figure. Come up with a million things. All in favor? On the warrant, from town to decide. Article 38, future facilities request for grants, bonds for future project approval.
Okay, you have in your packet from Greg, get his last name right, who works for Drummond and Woodson and has a lot of experience with municipal bonding and congressionally direct spending. And so he proposed 2 different warrant articles. They mean the same thing. They're just written differently. And it might just be a better grasp of understanding which one might make more sense to people. So if you want to review those, we can read them out loud, and then it's up to the board to determine the path forward.
So I do not have a copy of that. Okay, potential Article 38. See if the town will vote to authorize the select board to issue general obligation bonds or notes in the name of the town in a principal amount not to exceed $4 million, which bonds or notes may be made callable to pay costs to design, construct, and equip the new fire station public works facility. The project, 2, to expend up to $550,000 of available tax incremental financing revenues to pay project costs, and 3, to apply for and accept state and federal grants, including up to $4 million in federal congressionally directed spending funds to pay project costs, reduce the amount of bonds funds issued prior. If the town does not receive CDS funds, the town will not proceed with the project or issue any bonds or notes for the project. Or article potential 38. See if the town will vote to approve the design, construction, and equipment of a new fire station and public works facility project at an estimated cost of $7 million, and to authorize the select board to issue general obligation bonds and notes in the name of the town in a principal amount not to exceed $4 million, which bonds or notes may be made callable to pay project costs. 2, to expend up to $550,000 of available tax incremental financing revenues to pay project costs, and 3, to apply for and accept state and federal grants, including up to $4 million in federal congressionally developed spending funds, to pay project costs and reduce the amounts of bonds or notes issued for the project. If the town does not receive CDS funds, the town will not proceed with the project or issue any bonds or notes for the project. This was done by Greg M., attorney at Drummond.
Drummond Woodson.
All right. So I'm not quite sure, Becky, have you looked at this and what's the difference in the two?
They mean the same thing, they're just worded differently, and I think it's how people will understand it. And I guess, maybe reading it the first time, which one stood out to me more? The first one probably stood out a little bit more than the second, but then the second one, when he talked specifically about TIF, I asked a couple of questions, like, do we have to include impact fees or other areas? He said, no, because that we might use to actually pay the note on. And then I stepped away and I've kind of read them again, and they mean the same thing. It's just a matter of, I don't know, which one do you think people will understand what it means with simple explanations? The first one stood out a little bit more to me than the second, but.
I'm sorry.
The first article that, that John just read kind of stood out to me as being simpler to understand than the second, article.
Thoughts from the board? Isabel, have you read both the article? What's your thought? Just said, you don't have to stand.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So again, I'm Isabel Lee. I'm assisting the Future Facilities Committee through the work of this project as well, for those of you who might be unaware. So when I look at this, to me, the first one stands out, although I will say I don't necessarily have strong feelings either way. The first one stands out to me as maybe the simpler explanation of what's going on here. The one thing I want to note, and maybe this is implied, but I'll use this time to note this, is that I think it would be helpful if we had at the end something like, or issue any bonds or notes for the project this year or under this warrant article. It seems to be implied that if for some reason this didn't pass, the town could put this on a warrant in future years, but I just want to clarify that.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, so my concern, here's my concern about the wording of either of these actually, is that if for some reason this article didn't pass this year, if it would be confusing for residents in future years, if an article of this same or very similar came up again, because I don't know that it is the intention not to allow this project to ever move forward if CDS funds aren't received this year, or if the warrant isn't adopted this year. It would be reevaluating or reapplying really for funds in the future.
And so to that end, I question whether or not this is going to be an eternal article, because there's no end date to this. So this could be on the books till the year 3000 without a termination date. So I think it's important to have some kind of reference point, because if it takes 5 years to get approval, I'm just saying that, the figures will be different. So should there be a mechanism to allow a revote every year if the CDS grant is not?
That would be my recommendation. So I think any of our congressional delegation and their staff would note that the CDS funding process is a long and murky process at best. And even if we are awarded funds, it can often be a long process. And so I think just my recommendation, simplest recommendation that has not been legally vetted, is to just put or issue any bonds or notes for the project this year, this fiscal year, something along those lines.
So that would allow the reintroduction of this article next year
Yes,
without confusion.
yes.
Thank you. because this is going to be presented to the town and you want to be as clear as we can. You don't want it to feel like the chain melody here. So every year, if the grants aren't approved, we don't want this to be a poison pill and eliminate the project because of. So thank you for clarifying that. Does everybody understand that? Would you agree to amend the first article with Isabel's amendment and send that to make sure that our attorney agrees?
I would agree to that. Do you need a motion?
No, because we're not gonna add it to the warrant. Yeah, let's move with, as long as the attorney.
Approves
approves it. Yeah.
the edit.
So if you have a motion, Kate, thank you, Isabel. That's very good.
So I move that we approve the wording of the first section with specificity regarding the dates as approved by the attorney.
Second it.
Moved and seconded. You just give your suggestion one more time?
Yes, so my suggestion is that we go with whichever one you choose, seems like article, the first one. And then the last sentence is edited to note, if the town does not receive CDS funds, the town will not proceed with the project or issue any bonds or notes for the project this fiscal year.
Okay, with that amendment, all in favor? Thank you, Isabel.
And I'm adding, select board recommends approval to the bottom of that one.
All right, Article 39, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate $451,429 from the unassigned fund balance for the future facility committee for the following purpose: permitting, fundraising, grant writing, and design and construction drawing for the proposed co-located fire department and public works building.
So they had a request at the last budget presentation night about funds. This is the money that is not going to be used from the unassigned fund value that was approved last year. So voters approved 455 from the fund balance towards this fiscal year's project of the site and civil engineering design. And then the other 55 came from impact fees. The select board allocated, approved up to 95,000 of that, which we're going to spend the impact fees first. And then the difference, if needed, comes out of the unassigned fund. It's also the remainder of the 50,000 that they had as part of their carry forward money that will go back to unassigned fund at the end of this year. If it's not spent. So that's those two combined figures, and they're asking for these reasons. We had a conversation about using the words maybe not limited to, but the warrant article has to be specific about what the money's spent for. So we can't, have that sort of wider, broader reasoning.
So I'm cautious about the carry forward money. Tell me how that was included in this figure.
That is, so 50,000 was carry forward in July. We have spent, and I don't have the exact figure right in front of me, about 2,500 out of it. So 47,500 is left. So that included with the 405, if my math and my memory right now is correct, as Kate is, might be doing the math on paper. That's where that figure came from.
Recommend that we reduce this figure by that, whatever. that
Well,
amount is.
We'll want to talk about the unassigned fund balance when we get to the tax rate mill, Article 2, just about where we are and what that looks like as these other ones have come up.
Because it sets a precedent. It's just a shell game to include it in. So I'm going to ask that we find out how much was spent in a carry forward account. Subtract that from this request.
Okay, so that's about 47,500, roughly, approximately, but I'll get an exact one.
Yeah. All right, so with that math in mind, I'll entertain a motion. Sorry, it's,
I move that we approve the new number from the unassigned fund,
400.
It would be 405,000.
405,000 from the unassigned fund balance for future facilities committee.
Seconded. Transfer or appropriate 405,000 from the unassigned fund balance for future. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, Article 40, land purchase attorney will.
We want to talk about this one, but the attorney would need to draft this one, first of all. So, we were approached. We've offered a memo of understanding. The homeowners came back with some requests on the memo of understanding. I did have a chance to ask some questions with town attorney today. He said that we still could draft a warrant article. He knows how to draft it in a way that the terms would be, up to the select board to determine. However, without the acreage yet in the memo of understanding, which is a non-binding document, by the way, I just want to be sure we know what we're purchasing, I guess would be the question. And the property owners are requesting a survey first before determining how much they could offer the town, and they want the town to pay for that, which we couldn't even do until the money's allocated at town meeting for the next fiscal year. And we don't have an estimate on what that survey costs. They were working on getting one, but I have not received it.
Thoughts from the board?
This sounds like it may wait.
Where, it's the buyer's prerogative to do, the seller's prerogative to do with that land. We were just trying to get a placeholder, get them to wait to see if the town was interested in purchasing the property. So I don't think there's any. Thank you very much, Isabella. I don't know. We'd have to a warrant item to survey them.
And we don't know how much that is yet.
Yeah. Can you contact the attorney and have them write that article? I think we need to talk to the Francis. Survey may be a showstopper, so I don't know how to, can't transfer funds for a survey that the town government hasn't even had an opportunity to weigh in on whether or not it's important. So we really have to have some kind of town meeting vote on whether or not the town should move forward on that purchase. And if they won't allow us to do that without a survey, then we're kind of cooked. Am I reading that wrong?
Nope, that's correct.
Yeah, and
Sounds to me, I'll say this, that they're trying to get you to do their work for them. Because that is not kosher in my book. You don't survey somebody else's land.
Yeah.
You wanna sell it, they survey it, and they present you.
well, that's why I wanted to write the article, have a conversation with the seller. That, to me, feels like stinking thinking. Yeah,
Along the same lines, if we went through with that, and then they gave us a price that was nothing we wanted to pay, they now have a survey
yeah, sure.
that, and I think that would not fly well with the rest of the people in town. So I appreciate your prudence.
Okay, can we do that? Would the board allow to table this warrant? We may not make the meeting, but we gotta make sure we know what we're doing. It may be too speculative for a town, municipal government to purchase property. Just Let's see if you can write an article.
Yep.
And have that available for a public hearing. Article 41, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $60,000 for assessing and revaluation. Kate, want to make a motion?
I move that we approve raising and appropriating $60,000 for assessing and revaluation reserve.
Second it.
Favor? Good. Article 42, to see if the town will vote to authorize and accept and apply $863,626 for revenues.
I move that we approve accepting and applying $863,626 in for revenues.
Second it.
Seconded, all in favor? Carries. 43, to see if the town will vote to a transfer from unassigned fund balance and to appropriate up to $300,000. Okay, where are we?
So that's a good question. So I went and did some math. Last year, our audited unassigned fund balance as of 6/30/2025 was $2,171,795. We had warrant articles in the current fiscal year for 300 for tax mitigation. And then we had the up to 455, but then the select board has only released about 50,000 of that against the unassigned fund. And then we had the emergency 35,000 for the sand and salt shed. So that's just under 400,000 potentially committed right now. The Maine Municipal Association recommends 10% of your operating budget in 2 months payables. Our auditor recommends 3 months payables, and those are completely different figures of what would be left available. If we went with 3 months payables, that leaves about 527,000 in unassigned fund to use, and we've committed about that already. If we go with 2 months payables, that's about 944,000. That does not take into account any underestimation in revenues in the current fiscal year or unexpended budgets, which typically we have had in the past. Last year, that amounted to almost 600,000, which is why you gave back the 300 in the tax mill mitigation. Now, I can't say with 100% certainty that we would have that much, but there is some indication in revenues with excise tax, checking account, and rev sharing that we are underestimated this year, and there will be some of that money going in. And I looked at the general government, and at that one, looks like we probably will have some unexpended by the end of the year. I did not look at the rest of them today, but I can't say with any certainty how much that's going to be at the end of the year too. That would then again affect the audited amount at the end of this fiscal year. So that's a lot of information to take.
We have, the municipal budget is fairly flat. Would you agree?
That is correct. We are actually 7,000 under this year over last year as far as the municipal operating budget.
So I'm going to just recommend, and we can kick this around at public hearing, but I'd like to minimize that to 200 for tax.
The other piece of the equation that we're getting confirmation of is the valuation percentage. Without any factoring, it looks to be that we're going to be at 78%, which is fantastic news this year for everybody. The state had 2-year-old figures, and our assessor, Donna Hayes, has sent that back. We'll know after April 1st, but she felt pretty good about her figures. That's great news.
So I'm going to move that the town vote to transfer from unassigned fund balance and appropriate up to $200,000 to minimize tax bill rate increase.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? We just don't know. I think economics in next year are going to be crazy.
Mhm.
There's a lot of moving parts in this budget that you don't know what the future facilities committee will use. Salt shed is.
Mhm.
Blackwater. So we have to be careful. That would eliminate any contribution to the capital.
That's correct. Yeah.
I think they were aware of that. Okay, so. Business articles, Article 43 to see, we've already done that. 44, this is Andy O'Brien's article, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate funds remaining in the Pownell Center Water Association to operating funds at the end to the Pownell Community Water Reserve Fund.
Move that we approve transferring and appropriating funds remaining in the PCWA to the reserve fund.
Second. Moving seconded, all in favor? That passes. Article 45, to see if the town will vote to set September 15th, December 15th, March 15th, and June 15th as the dates on which 1/4 of taxes shall be due and payable, and to charge interest at that rate, 7%. 7% per year, computed on a daily basis on any portion of the installment dues that remain outstanding. Motion?
I move that we approve the dates of September 15th, December 15th, March 15th, and June 15th as the date for which 1/4 of taxes shall be due.
Second. Set the interest rate at 7%.
Yes.
All in favor? See if the town will permit tax collector the designated to waive unintentional tax interest payment shortage in the amount not to exceed $5.
Move that we approve the town will permit the tax collector or their designee to waive unintentional tax interest payment shortages in the amount not to exceed $5.
Second. Seconded, all in favor? See if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to accept payment for real estate property taxes not yet due or assessed pursuant to 36 MRSA Section 506. Town does not apply interest on such collections.
Move that we authorize the tax collector to accept payment of real estate property taxes not yet due or assessed pursuant 36 MRSA Section 506 and not apply interest.
Second. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Article 45 goes on the warrant. Article 46, to see if the town will vote to set 3% as the rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes pursuant to 36 MRSA Section 506A and authorize such interest paid or abatements granted to be appropriated from overlay funds or necessary for unassigned fund balance surplus.
Move that we approve the 3% rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes pursuant 36 MRSA Section 506A and to authorize such interest paid or abatements granted to be appropriated from overlay funds or if necessary from unassigned fund balance.
Second. 46 has been moved and seconded, all in favor? And carries. Article 47, to see if the town will vote to authorize select board to transfer not more than 3% town's budget expenses between budget line items within an individual department, provided the town's total budget expenditures should not be increased.
I move that we authorize the select board to transfer not more than 3% of the town budgeted expenditures between budget line items within an individual department, provided that the town's total budgeted expenditures shall not be increased.
Second. Moved and seconded, all in favor of Article 47, it's on the warrant. Article 48, see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to transfer any unexpended funds to the carry forward accounts within departments and committees to complete projects from the previous fiscal year.
I move that we authorize the select board to transfer unexpected funds to carry forward accounts within departments or committees to complete projects from the previous fiscal year.
Seconded. Seconded, all in favor of Article 48. Article 48 is on the warrant. Article 49, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board and other town treasurer on behalf of the town to accept any gifts, unanticipated donations, pass-through funds that may be provided by individuals, business associations, charitable groups, or other organizations which have not been listed in any of the previous articles if the select board determines that the gifts, donations, or pass-through funds and their purposes are in the best interest of the town, to extend such funds for their intended purposes. You can just move Article 49.
Move Article 49.
Seconded. Seconded, all in favor? Article 50, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board and the designated to seek, accept, and disperse grant funds from private, county, and state, federal agencies for the purpose so designated in each specific grant to execute any documents related to such grants. Repeat, you could just approve Article 50.
I Move that we approve Article 50.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve Article 50. Any discussion? All in favor? Article 50 is on the warrant. Article 51. See if the town will vote to approve appropriate funds received from the registration of snowmobiles to the Rocky Coast Riders and Tri-Town Penguin Snowmobile Club for the purpose of maintaining the snowmobile trails which are open to the general public without charge for snowmobile purposes or any other uses be authorized by property owner.
I move that we approve Article 51.
Second it.
Seconded. Discussion, all in favor? Praise the Lord. I guess I can't say that in a public meeting, but, okay. Thank you all for sitting through. Yes, sir. Can you step on the microphone so that,
Mike Pasquarello, Lawrence Road. Now that the Future Facilities Committee has warrant articles that are going to be on the final draft, should we begin the narratives to go with that? And if so, when do you need them by, or the narratives completed?
That is an excellent question. And my answer is yes, please. That would be really helpful. My hopes is I am going to make my edits. It's going to go to
Yep.
the town attorney tomorrow. I am away on vacation. When I return on the 6th, I plan to have my nice, vetted document from the attorney, and then I want to get things up on the website a week before the public hearing of April 13th. So it'd be very helpful if you could supply.
At least give you information that then may have to be wordsmithed or something, but at least from our perspective, what we see should be included.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you very much.
April 6th, I would like to be able to put it up on the website, so people have a week to review prior to the first public hearing.
is there any other new business? Is there any old business? Is there any correspondence? Yes.
So, two quick things. We applied for the Housing Opportunity Grant a couple weeks ago, and we received it. Thank you to Isabel for doing that. So about $5,600 we should see next month to help with ordinance work. So it was great. The second piece is we got a little bit more information on that stewardship program for the extended producer packaging refund. The state is putting out an RFP, and they want to know what towns want to participate. So we just need to send an email that says Pownell intends to participate. It's a reimbursement program. I think the word intends doesn't lock us in, so I'd like to, with your head nod or permission, to at least send an email that Pownell would like to participate. Right, I will get that done tomorrow.
Any other correspondence from the board? Any other business? All right, then, entertain a move for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Before we do, I just want to repeat, a thank you to both Isabella and Tim for all that work. For the Future Facilities Committee for their work. All in favor? You all?
Thank you.
Thank you.